All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first ever The Review Grid podcast. And I'm here together with Delph.
Hello, and guess what? My camera just froze at the at the
I
weirdest
think,
moment, and
yeah, I think mine did as
yep,
well. I just looked at stream like, oh, wait, what? We are stuck. Oh boy.
yep,
Perfect,
and
perfect start.
perfect start. Yep,
Yeah,
that's what Seb or Fernando would say. Perfect start, and then after
exactly.
that things go wrong in the race. Indeed. So
Exactly.
how's things, man?
It's a
How's
guarantee.
things
I think
been, man?
your
It's
camera
been a
it's
long time.
your camera it's still yep, it's
Mm-hmm.
still stuck.
Oh yeah, it's rebooting. No
It's
worries.
rebooting. All right. Okay, cool.
Gonna be up in a moment.
Yeah, it's been good. Oh, dude, thank God. It's finally March now. 2022 season going to be starting soon.
Oh yeah, man.
Just
I
in
mean,
time.
I think like the 90 days wait from the end of season till
Was it 90
now,
days? It
it's
felt like
like
more, man.
oh man,
Too long.
every day felt like a month. So and suddenly now the season is coming back and they're like, oh yes, the new cars, amazing,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
all that good stuff. It's like oh my God, how we missed this.
Exactly. So yeah, there's a lot that needs to be talked about, especially with 2022 season, the
Mm-hmm,
changes
mm-hmm.
and the new regulations and all that I put into place. We will definitely be going over all of that as well. Not in this podcast though, because the way that we'll be running it at the moment right now is because 2021 was such an awesome season. There was so many good races, so many good
Mm-hmm.
moments throughout, like from the start to the finish, and of course between the two main contenders, Max and Lewis. So there's so many different. Okay, your camera's back. Welcome back.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of talking points that we can go through, and also this is just in time for Drive to Survive, which will be coming out next week. So
Whee!
that's like a whole,
Drama.
yeah, exactly, a lot of drama and all that will be able to experience all over again, and just in time, just before the 2022 season begins as well. So basically, the way that we'll be running this podcast is we will be going through the 2021 season, the first half of the 2021 season, sort of just as a review. It is called a review grid anyway. So it's just
Mm.
going to be a review of the first half of the 2021 season. Next week, we'll be continuing with the second half of the season. We'll also have a special episode as well dedicated to going through the 2022 rules and regulation changes, the new drivers, basically all the changes, everything that's new and upcoming in Formula One for 2022, and that should lead us right into the first race of the season as well in Bahrain. So it should be
Yep.
just perfect timing.
Yeah, and I think to even to review the season itself, I'm like, wow. There's a lot
There's a
of
lot.
things that we have witnessed last season. It's probably one of the best seasons that we had ever since 2012 or even 2015, 16 even. Even those were not comparable as to what we had in 2021, and especially with Red Bull and Max just showing up Mercedes's R's and just going for the title. At one point, they looked like they were also in line for the constructors championship, but
Yeah,
as
agreed.
things unravel, I think their focus was like it's either we get Max to be a champion or we go home packing and
They had
don't
to
come back
choose.
again. They had to choose, yeah, and we saw the decision pretty much paid off at the end.
Yep. Okay, cool. So, yeah, so let's get into the driver lineup for that we had for
Mm.
last year, and just a little bit into like the preseason, the testing and stuff that happened early last year. So for Alfa Romeo, there weren't any changes. It was still Kimi Raikkonen and our Italian Jesus himself, Antonio Giovinazzi.
You.
Yes, Jojo. And for AlphaTauri, we had a newbie, basically the shortest guy on the grid, but he's still feisty. Yuki Tsunoda
Yuki. Mm-hmm.
paired up with Pierre Gasly. For Alpine, actually, sorry, my bad. The actual youngest guy on the grid, Fernando Alonso, joined
Yes, yes,
joined
correct.
Alpine. Yep,
The
he
young
was
driver,
he was
indeed.
yeah he was in the young driver test. So yeah, so for Alpine Racing, Esteban Ocon and Fernando Alonso. For Aston Martin, former Ferrari driver Sebastian Vettel joined up with Lance Stroll. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, Vettel, after his very troublesome season, the year before, finally
Mm.
left Ferrari. After all the incidents and stuff that happened, but yeah, it was a good change for him, I feel, and I think
Indeed, yeah.
he lost a lot of hair in 2021, but somehow he grew it all back in 2022. So I don't know
Yeah,
what
the
shampoo
magic
he's
of
using
hair
there.
transplant probably, but yep.
Yeah. And of course, for Ferrari, Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. So that was
Mm.
a very interesting pairing as well, something that we were looking forward to seeing how it would work out in the 2021 season. And yeah, I think it paid off well, especially for Ferrari with this young blood, basically, both drivers.
Mm. Yep.
For Haas, oops.
Oof.
Right, so for
Us,
Haas,
yeah.
the
The
year
rookies.
before, yeah, the year before they decided to let go both Romain Grosjean and Hulkenberg.
What? No, Kevin.
Oh, sorry, Magnussen. Oh gosh,
Kevin.
I was missing Hulk too much, Yeah, Magnussen.
Balls, Ligma balls. Yeah,
And we
so
got in the
that was a
rookies.
very very big decision to let go two senior drivers for two junior drivers, partly
Exactly.
because of some sponsorship that's coming in from Mazepin and Uralkali, and what's happening now as well. We will
Yeah,
probably get to that in some time when things really settle down.
yeah.
But yeah, it was a very bold decision. Mick was expected to do well. Mazepin, meh. He was like, the halfway there into a Raghunathan, Mahavir Raghunathan kind of guy.
Yeah, and there was
Luckily, it didn't
already a
happen.
lot of pre-season drama as well with like the
Mm,
whole Instagram thing and stuff that happened with him, and the people already
yeah.
calling for him to be dropped even before the season began,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, there's a lot of issue there, and it's a complete contrast compared to Mick Schumacher, and the fact that the Schumacher name, the legendary name, is back into F1, officially back into F1. It was such a big deal,
Yeah.
and Mick himself, the way he has carried himself, in this, like, as a new driver in basically this back end team essentially, and the fact that he managed to perform in that car, I think it shows a lot of potential in him.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it carried through as well.
Yep.
For McLaren, we had
McLaren.
the
Mm.
very interesting duo of Daniel Ricciardo and Lando Norris. So Ricciardo, of course, moving from Renault from the previous year
Yep.
over to McLaren. So that was something that we also quite look forward to, because we know that both of these guys are jokers, and with Ricardo always being like the funny guy and Norris being like the kid on the block. It's like trying to be the cool kid and
Yep.
stuff. So
Yeah.
it was a very interesting combination as well. For Mercedes, it was Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas. I think that was for 5 years running. Am I right? The same pairing, right? Oh, did we lose Dolph? Hello, Dolph. Okay, anyway, I'll wait for him to respond. Hopefully, he gets back soon. Gets back on soon. And finally, oh no, not finally. Second last, basically, Red Bull, the pairing of Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. So this was also a new combination, new team combination, because, of course, Perez being the new person in Red Bull, coming in from Racing Point, and he was basically jobless at the end of the previous season in 2020, but he managed to get the drive in Red Bull, and yeah, that was another interesting combination that we were looking forward to for 2021. Oh no, he's back.
Hello.
Hello, yes, you're back to Papaya now.
Okay. Cool. The good old restart the call. Yep. Yep. A little bit of
Yeah,
technical issues as always going on.
no
Uh,
worries. I'll,
yeah.
I'll just continue with the preseason stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Finally, for Williams, we had the same combination as well of Nicholas Latifi and George Russell.
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of the stuff that we saw preseason, I think one of the immediate conclusions that we came to from the testing itself, we knew that the Haas cars were pretty much very underdeveloped. They had a lot of issues even coming in from the previous year
Under
as well.
underdeveloped is considered an understatement. I'd say they were like not developed at
Not
all.
developed.
The only thing they did was just cut out the barge boards where as per the
The
requirement of the
requirements.
the you
Yeah.
know the small regulations in that season, and then they're like, nah, bro, we're not gonna do anything else for the rest of the season. See you in 2022.
Yeah, yeah, true.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they had a lot of budget constraints as well. And I mean, that's where I guess the help from Uralkali came in, to help
Mm-hmm.
finance the team at least for the year of 2021, so that they can sort things out for 2022 as well, just to get them
Yeah.
through. Basically, they were basically there just to fill up the last two spots, like in a sense. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, the fact that they had two rookies, so didn't really help that fact, considering they were really struggling with the car. The other thing we could see immediately also was the Williams. They were definitely a back end team, but they were faster than the Haas. That
Bit
was the
better. Yeah,
Yeah, they were a
that
little bit
was
better.
definitely a thing. Mhm.
But and also similar situation to the Alfa Romeo as well. Definitely faster than the Haas and also the Williams, but yeah, it was sort of like a similar situation. We could tell that these three teams would be like the back end sort of teams for
Yeah,
the season.
correct. Normally, the testing doesn't really indicate that much, but given that we have been into these regulations for about 4 to 5 years, right, and then just a minor
Yeah,
change, so minor change of like reducing the downforce and whatnot, you sort of expect the pecking order to be almost similar. But of course, when the season came, right, the preseason testing came on, we saw that some teams were affected even more than the others, especially the teams that run lower rakes like Aston Martin and Mercedes. They were
right.
more affected by that. Whereas the teams that had like higher rakes like Red
Red
Bull,
Bull.
to
Hmm.
some extent Ferrari, because they do run somewhere in between, and AlphaTauri, all those teams. So they were the ones that massively benefited. So, and some argue that it's to bring down Mercedes and help others to fight one way or another. But the reason they had that regulations coming in, because um, the teams did not want the tire compounds to be changed or updated for the 2021 season. So Pirelli were like, you know what, if y'all are not going to change, FIA y'all got to do something. So FIA is like, yeah, sure, let's just trim the downforce of these cars and roll with that. So these tires don't like have a Silverstone moments and just
Right.
blow up every lap or something. Yeah, that was the intention, but it turned out differently and gave us a very, very
Quite
tight
a
championship to
divided
come. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, quite a divided field in the end, I would say. Like of course we had the clear back end teams, the midfield teams, so like Aston Martin, AlphaTauri. AlphaTauri was sort of like I guess towards the end of the season they were sort of like in between. They were getting better. We could see the improvements there.
Yeah,
Gasly was starting
AlphaTauri
to
were, at best, they were probably the third fastest team of the day
right.
on average. And it's just a matter of like whether they get their setup right, they get in tune with the car and the circuit. And when that happened, I think, like the results really just spoke for themselves. Lah. Whereas Ferrari, they were the ones expected with their good old Ferrari master plan, and they
Yeah.
really did turn up quite well in the start, from the start itself, being about third-ish fastest team. As the season progressed, I think they just established themselves as the third fastest teams overall.
Overall, yeah.
McLaren were there as well in the first
They
half of the
were
season, but
Yeah, they had us in the first
I
half.
think in the second half of the season, Russia onwards, right? That's why Ferrari introduced their big upgrade to their battery pack, doubling the
Mm.
capacity and whatnot. So, in the telemetry data that Ted and all those that Sky Sports guys used to do,
Yeah.
right? So they did notice that like the Ferrari straight on performance has improved, especially towards the top end part of the speed, right? Towards the top end part of the straights, where they're able to deploy a little longer, and that just meant free lap time for them throughout the session, and 1/10 a lap that could add up to like
Yeah, over the
five,
course of
six,
the
seven,
race.
10 second of race time,
Yeah.
and yeah, probably Ferrari just probably found something extra as well with their setups or something, and they were struggling in high speed circuits like France,
Mm-hmm.
where there's front limited. It's more like front limited circuit where front tires go off very much earlier. They were like kind of exposed there. But suddenly, next race onwards, they're like, "Oh, good, we are fine in Austria. We're fine in Silverstone. What happened? Something definitely clicked in the Ferrari garage." I think
Yeah.
they're the one of the teams, among with the other top teams like for Red Bull and McLaren, Red Bull, Mercedes, and McLaren, that they're able to, rectify the issues immediately, or very as soon as possible, and then start moving forward again.
As much as the memes
Expecting
say,
that
we are looking, but they do look lah. We
they
know that
actually
they
look,
actually
I
look lah.
think they
Yeah.
actually looked and they actually fixed it. So that's the funny part, right? Like
Yeah.
wow, they actually did it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep. And I guess of course I think from the get go, like from the testing itself, we already knew the top two teams, Mercedes and Red Bull, like
Mm-hmm.
they were in a league of their own, like essentially from the start.
Yeah.
So we knew immediately that these two were the top contenders, and we already had the inclination that it's going to be Verstappen versus Hamilton sort of situation that is going to come up.
Yeah,
So yeah,
they were close, but we did not expect it to be that close to a point where they're just like trading positions lap after
yeah,
lap, race after race. So,
yeah. Trading P1, P2,
yeah,
race after race, that kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah.
All right, so we'll head into the discussion for the first round of 2021 Bahrain Grand Prix.
Ooh, Bahrain.
So
Yes.
just
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
so just to quickly go through, the way I've set it up is basically we will just briefly go through the qualifying as well, because there are some, with the introduction of sprint races, there's a whole like shake up in terms of the qualifying and stuff. So I will quickly go through a couple of points in qualifying and also followed by the race as well. So
Mhm.
I think one of the things that I did want to highlight was that this from the qualifying session, this was when we got the term thanks to Crofty, Mezza spin. That was
Oh
thanks to his
yeah.
spin.
I
Yeah,
think it was already coined by the somehow people might have like thought of that, but
Crofty like said it out
Mazepin
loud. Yeah, basically.
spins, and that's where the meme really started. So
Yeah,
for once a boomer making a meme, yeah, that's a funny thing in F1. But
yeah.
yeah, Haas didn't really have the best of outings in their first race. Not even the qualifying. The race was even worse. I think Mick was it, or I can't remember which Haas just died at lap one, and then a few laps later,
It
Mick
was
as well was
Mazepin.
back.
Yeah,
Boom. So they just went into the horizon. Car was just nowhere, uncontrollable. Uh,
yeah.
but I think apart from that, some other teams like Ferrari, I think they surprised because for like that one race, like, huh, Ferrari won too. What world are we living in? And then soon after, once the Mercs and the Red Bulls banging at them, you're like, okay, back to reality. So not too
Yeah.
soon, not too
And
soon.
basically at the front end, even from qualifying onwards, it was already, I believe it was Verstappen basically on pole, followed
Mm-hmm.
by Hamilton and Bottas. So it was already Verham bot. It's always like Hammer bot, Verham bot, bot Verham. Those are like the normal three
Yeah.
short forms that we've always been seeing, and yeah, that basically continued into this season as well. And even
Yeah.
during the race, Verstappen, he started off in P1. He managed to fend off Hamilton at the start of the race, but of course, because of the Mazepin crash, the safety car came out,
Mm.
and
It's a bit of
there was
unlucky timing,
yeah, I
Mm.
guess it sort of affected their strategy as well in terms of the pit stops, because basically Hamilton managed to get the undercut on Verstappen. Verstappen was leading the race, but Hamilton managed to get the undercut and eventually overtook Verstappen on track, as you see over here.
Yeah. And
So
well, I think that's the one of the highlights of that season itself, right? Of the race itself, which was kind of like setting a precedent of what's to come. Track limits and
exactly,
side by side racing. How hard is hard racing? How hard is clean? And we saw like around turn four when I think towards the last few laps when Max tried to make a move on Hamilton, and
he did make a
he
move,
went he did make a
but
move,
he
but
was just
all
off the
four
track.
wheels were off track at the one moment, and it was like, oh no, that's an illegal overtake. You have to return the position. Whereas Hamilton, who has been like extending that part of the track lap after lap, probably gaining like 2 or 3 tenths to Max every lap, and overall gained about 10 seconds probably in the race, just by doing that, and nothing was said about that.
Yeah, I
Everything
mean,
was just like
basically,
just a warning.
little did we know that was already an indication of what what a big issue this was going to be later on in the
Mm-hmm,
season, especially
mm-hmm.
the last race and all that. So yeah,
No.
it was
Yeah.
it was definitely something that we never really thought about it at that point of time, of course, but that whole
It was already brewing, unknowingly.
yeah.
Now that we look
Now in
back at it,
hindsight,
right?
yeah, we can see it
Yeah.
sort of happening already. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so yeah, it like what you said, it basically gave the indication of how close these two were battling each other, and of course the whole track limits thing, how much of an issue that will also come to be in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yep.
that was basically a quick recap on Bahrain. We'll be moving on next to round two, the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. So actually first,
Imola.
yes,
Yes.
Imola. Any idea why they didn't just call it Imola?
I mean, it's the Italians, man. They wanna
Is it
have their
because
own way.
like I mean it feels sort of like because Austria they have the Austrian Grand Prix and the Styrian Grand Prix and it's on the same track kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Like sort of feel like that.
Maybe, Austrian GP is like the actual thing, and Styrian is just like the region, right? It's called Styria.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why it's kind of like if you have like a Malaysian Grand Prix and then you have like like a KL Grand Prix or something, or Sepang Grand Prix, something like that, you know. So it's probably that the idea they had, but Emilia Romagna, I think, is just some Italian stuff, or I don't understand whatever it is, but well, it's a nice name. It's a different name at least, so we went with that. Imola
Yep.
as well. The race. Wow. Rain at the start. Slippery off the line
Yep.
into turn one. We knew what happened. Hamilton, Verstappen, they were side by side, and Max just like, you know what? It's now or never.
Max did
Just
not give any.
boom,
Yeah, he did not give any. How
no
do you say? No
space.
space. Yeah. But the thing is, I mean, it comes it this is the sort of thing that we will revisit again. In the upcoming races as well. You go for the
Hmm.
space. Like that's sort of like
Yeah,
the infamous words that Atin Senna say. If you don't go for the space, you're not a driver. And I guess in
correct.
this situation, Hamilton went for the space.
Yeah, but
Even
he
though there
was
was
around
barely
the
any space
outside.
there. Yeah,
Correct. He was trying around the outside. It was a bit audacious,
yeah, and he
and
bounced over the curb
bounced over the
quite
curb. It
badly.
was gonna happen. It was the nature of the circuit, the corner itself, and it's wet. He expected something to happen, and worst case actually happened. I think he picked up a bit of wind damage,
Yeah,
which meant he couldn't close up to Max. But at the same time, because it was tricky weather, I think slowly they got into grips, and also Hamilton, well, doing a big boo boo and whatnot.
yeah. This
Uh,
was actually also one of the
yeah.
very rare instances of Hamilton actually making a mistake. When he
And he
accidentally
spun out
slid.
somewhere.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
slid off the track, and in the process of trying to get back onto track, he hit the wall and had front wing damage. So that was actually quite surprising to see. But of course, that was sort of it would have been a big issue if it wasn't thanks to our dear friend Valtteri Bottas, and I mean actually no, our dear friend George Russell, who decided to
He's
make a move.
Lewis's teammate and future
Future
teammate to
teammate.
be at that time.
Exactly.
So they collided. It was a racing incident anyway. Bottas was not having a good day at all. He was being overtaken by everyone, and of all people, he was
Being
was
overtaken by the Williams.
by the Williams of George Russell, and Russell was like, I see the space, I have DRS, it's dry now, I'm just gonna go for it. But
A
the
little
off
bit too
track
wide.
was a
Yeah.
little damp, so if you put your wheel on it just spun him off, and it was surprising to see that, but we were like, oh, and then a safety car, and then it's like all things just broke loose, and yeah, it was funny that, but somehow, uh, Max just held on to his lead, just went on to
Yep.
I think Lewis had a fight back as well. He
He
had
did a
to
recovery
charge to
drive.
the field.
He did a
Mm.
very good recovery drive and managed to end up P2 at the end, even
Yeah,
overtaking Norris.
he
And that
had
was
to
actually quite a good.
overtake both the Ferraris and
Yeah.
Norris. But once it started drive, I think that's where we saw the Merc, started to play into their own advantage. Something that we're about to see in the coming races. The Merc with their straight line speed advantage. Somehow, it started to show uh, in
In this Grand Prix as well.
in this Grand Prix onwards. Yeah, we didn't see it in Bahrain, probably because they were just maybe a bit too conservative with the way they went with the car. But second race onwards, they were on it, and yeah, Ferrari as well. I think they impressed in the wets. They did mention that they were kind of like going for a wet-ish setup, for the race,
You're right.
and they really did well. But come the dries, they were like just sitting ducks on the straight. But they still held out,
I
and
think it gave a good indication
point five
that
for them.
they were basically Ferrari and McLaren as well. They were clearly the number three, number four team. It just depends on
Yeah, at that
what
time.
they end up at
Mm-hmm.
that point. But yeah, they were clearly the best of the rest, like essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
for the midfield teams. All right, and that was that Grand Prix. So moving on to round three, the Portuguese Grand Prix.
Round three. Yes, Portuguese Grand Prix. This was well,
Honestly,
a
this
bit
was
meh.
yeah, a little
Yeah,
bit meh. I
a
guess
little meh.
the
Yeah.
thing that especially to highlight from qualifying, basically our boy Mr. Saturday, George Russell,
Mm-hmm.
he has at this point at least managed to make it 3 out of 3 times into Q2, which was I
Mm-hmm.
think the first time he's done that before. And also he got his highest qualifying position at that point of time at 11th place with the Williams.
Yeah.
So that was
Correct.
quite a surprise. Like really nobody expected that. And to get 11th place especially, it was really something interesting to see that, this guy he is able to drive that car up to that level. Something that even
Yeah, he just
Latifi so far has not managed to.
brings out just brings out every single ounce of performance from the car. And
Yeah.
putting in P11, I mean, in real life, it doesn't really sound too bad. But if you know some league races and whatnot, people will say P11 is the strategic pole position because you get free tire choice and whatnot, and it's equal performance in like league races and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Sim racing. So if you start back with fresh tires, you can probably make the strategy work in your favor. Of course, it's not that case in real life. So he quickly found his way down the order as the race went, and again, harsh reality just sets in, and well, I think he soon learned that we can get a good performance every now and then in quali, but in the
Yeah.
race,
In the
it's
race
gonna
they start
be
falling
difficult
back
to
basically.
hold on to the position. So yeah, that was the weakness of the Williams per se throughout the season as well. They had good qualifying pace, but come the race day, their car just wasn't quick enough to stick it up in front.
Yeah.
So it's a gamble they had to take as one of the slowest cars. So they made up the gamble and go
It's
for
sort of
it in
like they
qualifying.
set it up in such a way,
Mm,
like, I guess, like try and get as high a position as possible in order to try and finish the race as high as possible as well. They know that I
yeah.
guess their race pace is just not there, comparable, not compared to the other midfield teams.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he ended up P16. Was like, meh, okay, it wasn't too bad of an effort, but
Mm-hmm.
I think we can turn back our attention to the front again, right?
Yeah.
Once again, shoot, back and forth, and this is the one real time we start to see, the different approaches Red Bull and Mercedes go for their setups. But Red Bull, although they seem fast overall on one lap pace, as you can see from the quality performance, I think maybe they lacked a little bit uh, in Portimao. They were just
Mm-hmm.
like clearly 3/4 off, but Mercedes were bullets on the straight line, and they were equally as fast in the corners. So something just clicked probably for them. Maybe the tires, maybe the tracks have surface and whatnot, and setup. Uh, one
Right.
two for Merck in the race. Although Max had a pretty good start. He was up to P2, even P1 at one point, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Right.
But Hamilton just came back and made an easy pass on him after a few
Yeah.
laps
Max
behind
couldn't
him.
really
Mm,
do much, I guess, at that point. I
yeah,
think
and even
the
with
team themselves
the
knew.
even with the shortened DRS straight, right? The Merc was just really quick at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we thought, man, maybe it's just they're running a little better, a little higher, a little low wing this week. That's why they're able to overtake so easily. Uh, but as we're about to see in the coming races, that was not the case. It was genuinely an advantage that the Merc had, uh, and it got even better towards the end of the season.
Yeah, and also I think in terms of strategy wise as well, Mercedes had a better strategy in their race. Like they basically almost had
Mm-hmm.
a 1-2 finish. It just so happened that I think Bottas's pit stop, there was a little bit of an issue, like a little bit of a delay, and
Yeah.
basically because of the colder tires, Max managed to get a jump on him and eventually finish P2. So we ended with a
Mm-hmm.
Hamver bot again for
once
the
again,
race. Yeah,
the usual
the
top
usual.
three, and I think that became like the uh, most, most repeated, or most occurring top three,
Finish.
right?
Yeah,
So Max, Hamilton, were Hambot basically, Hammer bot or bot hamper or whatever.
yeah. It's always the
These
same.
three were like the most repeated top three in any combination. So that
Yeah,
was well expected again. Uh, but yeah, this time around, after that, I think Portugal was done.
going to the
We
Spanish Grand
headed
Prix.
to Spanish Grand Prix, a place
Yep.
that I actually like. Um, so in the Sims, at least, it's a nice place for me. That's what really got me into sim racing, first of all. Um,
Okay.
that was a track, so it has a special place in my heart. Uh, but
I'm
yeah,
sure it,
Spanish
it
Grand
it has a
Prix.
special place in Hamilton's heart as well because that is where he got his 100th pole position. Yep, a
Indeed,
very
indeed.
big milestone there,
And
especially.
but again, quali was very, very close. We were, as always, we are in a psycho server usually, right? During
Yeah, yeah.
the races, we call it our mama chat, right? So damn, that VC, like, for the whole year, was just blowing up with noises in quali, in the race, because of what's really happening on track. Q3 came and just did bang in bang their times, and Hamilton just pipped just about under half a tenth and took pole. But taking pole in Spain, not necessarily the most important thing, because it's a pretty long run down to turn
Onto
one,
turn
and if
one.
you're
Yep.
starting second or third, you get a better launch, you get a slipstream of the car in front, you have a chance to send it, and exactly
And
that happened.
yes, this
Max sent
Max,
it
of
down
course,
the
sent it.
inside, and like, nah, man, I'm not giving it an inch of space. It was pretty much the carbon
It
copy
was
of
like full elbows
Imola.
out. It's like that.
Yeah,
He just went
yeah.
for it, and
White
yeah,
White Steppen.
I
Yeah,
think
you
I think
have no space.
I think that's sort of like the one of the reasons a lot of anti Verstappen fans are anti Verstappen,
Hmm.
supporters. They're like they're basically saying that this guy, he just doesn't give a damn. He just goes for it and doesn't think about other driver, kind of thing. In a
Yeah,
sense,
he's
it is true.
aggressive,
It is
definitely.
true. It is
Yeah.
He is an aggressive driver. To be frank,
Hmm.
I think if you compare this to 2008 Lewis, I would say it's the same sort of situation as well. For someone
Yep.
who at
Yep.
that age, who knows that he's in a fast car, they are just going to send it. They're going to go like crazy because they know that they
Yeah.
have the opportunity.
Correct. And also another thing that I think a lot of people mention online forums and whatnot, right?
Yeah,
People don't usually drive aggressive unless they know their car is not the fastest on that week. So we saw this time and time again where Max really, like, made some aggressive but clean moves, like on the limit of the regulations that they had at that time,
right.
to make the moves into turn one, Imola, and then Spain. Just enough gap for Hamilton to stick it. But if Hamilton sticks it more, he's gonna be in the bin. So Hamilton has to back out. Uh, but then again, come the middle part of the race, even towards the end of the first stage, Hamilton was like sticking to Max very, very closely, within a second, within 2 seconds,
Yeah,
and getting closer and closer.
eventually getting
And came the
the
pit stops. Oh, that was the best part, wasn't it? I think the first pit stop was like, okay, it's expected. Max is gonna go to the end. Maybe Lewis is gonna go to the end as well. And then we started hearing, uh, you know, that around lap 38, 40, I think 30, 40-ish. And
mm-hmm.
then suddenly, when Hamilton closed up to Max, he's been pushing for a few laps. Hamilton's been pushing for a few laps. It was unnatural for them to like push at that stage to chew up the tires. And suddenly you saw the mug just bolted in the pit. You're like, huh? Oh no! What is this? And then
The strategy plays again.
it's pretty much a Hungary kind of a Hungary 2020, I think, or 2019. It was a checkmate move at that time. If Max decided to pit,
Right.
Max would just be losing the position to the
Lose
other
out
guy.
time. Yeah.
So they stuck it out there, but it was just like 5 or 6 laps too much for Max to take. Lewis caught up on the fresher mediums versus like Max's like dying hearts that were like since don't know lap 20-ish on that time.
Yeah.
And Max just didn't have the pace to like hold him off. Eventually he had to yield the position, and P2 it was. But again, Hammerbot.
Yep.
We were starting to get like, nah, it's kind of getting boring now, but it was okay then.
This was
So,
also
mhm.
something that I did want to mention. This was also actually the first time I believe that we heard direct sort of intervention between the race director and the team, and this was mainly between Toto and Michael Massey regarding the blue flags. Like he was calling for blue flags because Hamilton was basically rushing
Oh
to catch up to
yeah,
Verstappen, right?
and
And
guess who? Our good old friend from Haas, Nikita Mazepin, always at
exactly,
the forefront of it. So yeah,
yeah,
he caused it as usual, and Michael is costing us time and blah blah blah, and all that happened, and
yeah.
yeah, a few
So
few
so
flags
I think
later, there
even
you go.
while we were actually watching the race, we were also like, oh wait, wow, okay, they're actually like
Yeah,
showing
what's
this
this? Is that
communication. Oh,
what?
this is something new.
Team
Yeah,
radio, something new.
yeah. So that was
Mm.
interesting. And also again, little did we know how much of a how much of a thing that how much of importance
It
that is going to
became
be. Yeah, by the
towards
end
the
of the
end of the
season.
season and the birth of a new meme.
Exactly.
Indeed.
And also,
Yeah.
of course, the what do you call that, the just putting it frankly, like team orders lah between the drivers in Mercedes. So basically, Bottas was asked to give up the position, when Hamilton was on
Mm.
the comeback drive, and yeah, that
Yeah, that's
helped him
usually
to
to be
catch up.
expected if you have another driver on a different strategy and is coming up faster. You expect them to give up positions. So that
Mm-hmm.
was still
Still
okay.
okay, yeah.
Whereas in some races, as we're about to see, probably even in the second half of the season, there were like questionable team orders. They were like, like, oh, just let him through now,
Yeah.
while you're on the same strategy. Because they knew at that time, every single point, every single position, every second that you waste on track would be costing them in the championship.
I just thought of something, but I feel kind of sad for saying this lah for Perez. Like
Uh-huh.
Perez never had that issue because he he was basically never in front of Verstappen.
Yeah, yeah,
Verstappen was
correct.
always the front driver,
Yeah.
So Perez never had the issue of needing to give up a position, which I guess for
Mm.
him is he's okay lah. Like for him, as what we'll see in the next race, especially,
Mm-hmm.
he told the team when he joined Red Bull to give him at least 5 to 6 races, I think, to like
Five
get used,
races.
yeah, get
Five
used
races.
to
And Monaco was the fifth race for him to get used to it.
exactly. So yeah, perfect
And
segue now into Monaco.
perfect one. And for one moment, we can actually turn away from Mercedes and turn our faces to Ferrari. My
Yes. Oh
goodness,
gosh. Yeah.
what were they on? They were like on crack, and on that weekend, for the first time, we actually saw how good that car was in
Oh
slow
gosh.
speed
I
corners.
feel I
And
feel bad when you're saying that, but I'm putting up this picture on stream because because
oh,
of the qualifying incident.
uh,
Yeah.
I am stupid. That wasn't the first time he crashed that in that corner. The year before, or was it on 2019 where they raced there also, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or no, 18 I think. Or whichever year they were last there, right? Leclerc binned it there as well, and it was like we were like into the Q3 final run. We're like, please don't crash, and boom, the cut scene, and there you go. You see a wild Ferrari just stranded, coming out of the swimming pool chicane. It's like, okay, well, that happened, and
Yep.
crucially though, that secured him the pole, which
Exactly.
was the funniest
It
thing.
brought out a red
And
flag, and yeah,
Max could not improve because of the red flag. Yeah.
even Sainz as well. I believe Sainz was on set at least for a P3 if I'm not mistaken at that point, and then he had to drop off.
Hmm.
The Ferrari
Yeah.
was surprisingly good. Both Ferraris were
Yeah, they
surprisingly
were
good.
the best team out on track on that day. Probably only matched by Max, not the Red Bull, but Max alone.
Mm.
So these three were like just trading times. Probably anyone could have gotten a pole on that day, unless the red flag, and we know what happened.
Yep.
But the race.
Yes, the
Right. Oh
race.
my God, that was painful because all throughout the night, what happened was, Ferrari were like investigating. Oh yes, the gear box is good.
Yeah, we can go
Everything is
ahead.
good. We
We
check
can
the
start the
sides,
race.
but crucially they forgot to check the left side of the tire, and that's where the damage was. And taking a five-place grid penalty in Monaco is definitely costly because track position is pretty much key. Qualifying is key.
Yep.
If they would have taken the chance and you know actually gone for it, change the gearbox, we might have seen actually a Ferrari winning the race, maybe through strategy and whatnot.
Yeah.
But Leclerc was out, and a few other things happened in the race, and Carlos somehow
Yeah.
came out in P2. That
Yeah, I mean,
was
yeah,
that
like
was a
what you said,
surprise.
the Ferrari had the pace that weekend, and
Mm.
yeah, seeing Carlos on the podium, especially with Norris there in P3 as well, that was a great moment,
Yeah,
and
yeah. And
yeah,
it was
of
great to
course,
see Norris up there, with the Golf League. We were like, wow, okay, finally
yeah,
something new.
exactly,
And Perez, for once, I think he showed very good race pace, man. Qualifying, I don't think he had the best result. Looking at the qualifying, he qualified in P9.
right.
Which you
Probably
expect
he
like
was affected by the
mhm.
Leclerc incident as well. He was probably setting
That, and
another
he
time.
wasn't really having the best day. I think
Hmm.
at that point he was still like struggling
I
with the
mean,
car.
he didn't have the good
Mm-hmm.
day. Oh no, sorry. Okay, yeah, yeah. Sorry, I was thinking
Mm.
about Bottas.
I mean, okay,
uh, do
we're
you
not
want to
talking about the marks in this race. We're not
no? But
talking
do
about
you want
that.
to explain about his issue? What exactly happened with
No.
the wheel gun? what did the,
Oh my
what
God.
did the tire guy do there? Did they like
Oh
angle
well.
it incorrectly, or from what I
Uh,
understand, they sort of sheared the nut and it sort of like became fused, like it could not
yeah,
be
it's
removed anymore.
apparently it's an issue when the tires with the tire warm up. I mean, as you race and the heat dissipates through the rims and whatnot, right?
Right.
They tend to the heat builds up somewhere, and of course they exit through the openings in the rim, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you know, suspension travel and all that, they can damage the rim in some way. It did not damage the rim, but it kind of like maybe like screwed with the screw or screwed the nut. So
Right.
and the nut was like machine. Well, what they mean by machine was, and when the wheel gun goes in, it tries to,
It
the teeth,
rotates.
it tries to
It
hook it,
it
right?
grips. Yeah, it grips onto it.
Yeah, it tries to grip on it, but as it is doing that, as it's spinning and whatnot, it just irons out the nut, and it becomes like a uh, s- smooth thing, and you can't grip it out anymore.
Yeah.
And because of that, his tires was like stuck there, and that pretty much became unofficially and probably officially the longest pit stop
I think it
in
was like
F1
sort of
history.
officially. Yeah. It
So
took a
it
couple
was
of
like
days.
3 or 4 days worth of pit stop. They Mercedes, like on the Twitter, they even made it like a meme and something, right? They were like, "Oh yes, finally pit stop is over," and yeah,
Right.
Hamilton.
Yeah.
I'd say we're not going to talk about it in this race, but I think Hamilton, um, in Monaco with this car probably just doesn't suit him. So he was
Right.
nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
He was just having a chill day. I don't know where when he finished. Was it P7? Yeah, P7 as always. So he just chilled there. Um, but yeah, Perez, I think making the strategy really work, going for the overcut, you know, extend your tires as long as possible. Once you get the clear air, just pump in a few good laps, and a few laps later, he jumped everyone. Even Seb, who stayed out second longest among the group, right?
Mm-hmm.
He jumped Pierre Gasly, he jumped Hamilton, and he ended up in P5. So that was a good performance by him as well. So, but again, you can't overtake in Monaco. Might as well get the track position and just bring it home.
Yeah. Just one final thing, I guess, before we move on to the next Grand Prix. Like this is just sort more of like a personal complaint, like I would
Mm-hmm.
say the interview with Serena Williams at the end.
Oh God.
It was
Oh
Coulthard,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Coulthard running the interview, right?
yeah. I
It
think it
was
was
him, right?
DC
Yeah,
was
it was
doing the
DC.
interviews.
So I I I just cannot brain basically. I don't know how else to put it. Like I don't understand why you would ask that sort of question to a tennis player. Referring to a Formula One driver. Like it just doesn't make any sense. It was awkward for both Verstappen and for Serena Williams as well.
It's like
Yeah.
Max was just like that.
It,
You know that meme, right? The monkey guy or
yeah, just looking sideways and looking back.
it's like, okay,
I don't know. Like
yeah,
it's just F1
yeah.
and their whole thing about I want to get
And
celebrities
she was
in.
also the one who actually waved the checkered flag, right? If
She
I'm not
waved it a
mistaken.
bit, yeah, wrongly or
Like,
yeah,
I mean, I'd expect someone, who is the world champion in their field of sports.
yeah, exactly.
Kudos to her. I mean, like, not say we are like, talking bad. Or, I mean, she's great
She's
in her
great in
group in
tennis.
tennis.
Yeah,
But I'd expect someone like of that caliber to at least know how to wave a flag, or someone might have taught her to wave a flag, or
exactly.
even
What?
like
Yeah, how to do it properly.
yeah. I mean, normally, you see there's like a certain way how they hold it and they wave it, right? Even if
Mm.
you want to do it like with two hands, it looks awkward, but at least you wave it nicely. You can see the
You can see the
flag is
flag.
waving.
Yeah.
It's okay. This was just like you're playing like firecrackers. You're just like
Yeah.
la 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 la, and
But I
that
don't know.
was that
I
was
feel like
crazy.
this whole thing. I mean, we see this obviously again later on in like the US GP and all that as well. It's like it's
Mm.
just the F1 pandering towards like celebrities and stuff. It like, come on,
Yeah.
guys, you don't need to do it. F1 is already a thing on its own. Now especially with
One last thing before we move on to the next race.
right.
And it's Lance Stroll coming
Of
back.
course, how could I forget that? Oh my
uh,
god. Honestly, one of
I
the
think that
best
was
memes from the year,
yeah,
I would say.
yeah.
Actually,
I believe
we
it
should do a
was.
meme recap also for like
Oh
2021
yeah,
meme recap.
we should do a meme
Like
recap. Although
rank the
I'm
best.
pretty sure there are a lot of people out there who have done a meme recap, but we
Oh
can
no
do
no, we could like
just
rank the memes.
rank all the memes. Yeah, yeah. I think this would definitely be top. I believe this was
What's going on, Lance Stroll? We need to know what
Gasly and
happened.
w- yeah, Vettel I think was lining up a move on Gasly or something. They were coming out of pits or
Exactly.
something, and then they were running up the hill out of turn one, into Beau Rivage or whatever the corner is, and then suddenly what's happened there, Lance Stroll, and boom. And later on, we got to know that the race directors, not the race director, the TV directors for Monaco are like different set of people than the usual
Right.
F1 people. So they were like pretty much like uncoordinated or a bunch of newbies.
Yeah,
So
because
they
it's
were
so
like doing
hard to
all that
even
silly
see an
mistakes.
overtake take place in Monaco, and the fact that an overtake was happening at that exact moment when he decided to cut away, it was such
Yeah,
a like aggravating moment.
that became like a meme for the month or even for the year, and even until now we're like like sometimes we're watching an F1, like someone posts something, right, and sure, the Lance Stroll
Yeah,
comes in
Lance
and
Stroll.
it's like, oh no, come on, show us what's the ending, and they like just cut it off. Yeah, that pretty much sums up the first
Monaco.
five
Yep.
rounds, and
Yep.
then heading into round six, um some magical thing
Azerbaijan
happens.
Grand Prix. This was honestly one
Magical
of the.
things.
I feel, to be honest, there were a couple of points this season that basically pivoted the entire World Championship, and this was the
Mm-hmm.
first point. Of
Yeah.
course, there were a couple more after this that had a huge impact, but this was the first one because it essentially puts both the contenders out of place.
Yeah,
Unexpectedly.
technically, they didn't really gain on each other, so it's kind of like nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
Um,
But no, but
but given,
the thing is,
yeah,
it's like, yeah,
at the
if
first, yeah,
if Lewis didn't mess
if this
up his
happened, if
magic,
that didn't
or
happen,
the tire didn't explode for Max and stuff, it would have been a completely different story from then on already.
correct,
And because it's
correct,
such a huge impact, these guys, they were leading the race, they were going to get that 25 points, and we know how
yeah.
close it came at the end of the season. So yeah, just going briefly into quali for
Oh, once
Azerbaijan.
again, Ferrari, what was
Exactly,
that pace, man? Uh, Ferrari,
we
I
had
don't
a
know
lot
what
of
what were they on. On pole, Leclerc
Leclerc was
by
on
two
pole. Yeah.
two and a half tenths to a Mercedes, to the fastest car on the grid, arguably 3 tenths to Max. I was like, what? How did they even
I
get
mean,
that?
okay.
And that
To be
was really
fair,
unexpected.
to be
Yeah.
fair, they were helped by the red flags. I feel, if I'm not mistaken, this qualifying was the most red flagged qualifying of the season, because basically in Q1, Q2, and Q3, I believe they were all red flags.
Yeah.
A lot of incidents, especially in the turn 15. Stroll had crashed out, Giovinazzi crashed out, Ricardo also crashed out in Q2,
Mm.
and I think Sunoda crashed out in Q3. So basically, the Sunoda crash sort of ended Q3 as well, and that allowed Leclerc to get second pole in a row. And
Yeah.
luckily, this pole he managed to start in pole position.
Yeah, indeed. But Baku, although it's a street circuit, it's a place where you can easily overtake. And as we saw,
Yes,
as the race started to unfold, well, you know, Ferrari's race pace came to came to light again.
came to
That was
their normal. They
probably
basically went back to their normal
their weakness
situation.
compared to everyone. Yeah, so they were like, nah, we're not the fastest in race pace, and they're just gonna drop down
Yeah.
the order.
Hamilton overtook
And
him, Verstappen overtook him, Perez overtook him. He was already out of the top three
mhm,
at that point.
indeed.
And
And then
yeah,
McLarens were like okay-ish on that day. They were not the fastest, but in the race, they were looking much better than Ferrari did. And they were a genuine threat. Probably Leclerc was like, ah, no, I might even be out of the points at this, if this goes on. But Max, Lance Stroll's tires blew out,
Yep.
and then Max's tire blew out as
We
well.
have
Surprisingly,
the
it was the rear left for both of them.
infamous hashtag experience Azerbaijan that itself
Oh
became
yes,
another meme.
yep. Max kicking his rear tire that blew
Yeah.
up, and right above them, experience Azerbaijan. That was the
That
best
was
thing
perfect. I feel like in terms of like the best picture of the season, I think that summed up like that season era.
Yeah, kudos to the cameraman who got there. Was like, you made a meme material, man.
Yeah.
And then, that brought out the safety car. Was it? I
It
think it was
was
even red flag.
safety
Yeah.
car and then it was red flag. Yeah, because they had
Mm,
to basically close the start finish straight to clear out Max's car and the
yeah.
debris.
So that at that
And
point we
yeah,
were like, oh no, this is gonna be easy win for Hamilton. Maybe even a P2 at worst.
yeah,
Little did we
because
know on
Perez
the
was leading the race at that point.
press was
Uh,
leading. Yeah. So little did we know, on the safety car restart, uh, I think Hamilton was leading on the final safety car restart, right?
yep.
They had a standing start and line up on the grid, blah blah blah. Oh, yeah, actually, it was Perez who was leading. I think. He got jumped by Lewis, but
Lewis turned
but
on his magic.
yes, and then oh no, what happened there? Controller disconnected.
Yeah,
All the meme starts, and then he went off track at turn one. Luckily, there was a runoff there. And
yeah,
then later
exactly.
we learned that there's such a thing called magic, which pretty much sets the brake bias very forward. That helps with warming up the tires, especially during formation laps or even under safety car. To keep some temperature in the front
Is
tires
that a
because that's
Merc
slightly.
only kind of thing?
It's actually a
Is
thing where all cars have it,
okay.
and it's just like a special button. It just like drastically pushes your brake bias forward. Whereas normally, right, drivers will have on their steering, they will
Mm-hmm.
go through all the buttons and whatnot, some dials to adjust their brake bias,
So
right?
so that would
Normally
mean
they run about 56, 57, 60, around those range. But
during the race starts, it would be turned off. They only use it during
mm,
the warm up lap lah.
yes, correct. So they would use it. It puts the brake bias 86% forward, about 80 plus forward. That means 80% of the braking is done on the front tires.
Right.
Which
Okay.
means
To
you
warm up
really
the
need
tires
like a
faster.
car that really has like a very good, like significantly much more aero on the front than the rear, so that the car stops. But it's not feasible given that how heavy these cars are.
Right.
Actually, what happened? He did turn it off, but
He
on the
accidentally.
start while accelerating, right?
Right.
It flicked and it turned back on, and by the time turn one arrived,
He just went
off he
straight.
went.
It was like that, that Fast and Furious meme. All the cars are turning here,
Yeah,
and just Hamilton's like, "Oh, I'm going."
yeah. So that was like the final plot twist that we were not expecting,
Exactly.
and that led to uh, the first ever race win for Checo Perez in the Red
Yep.
Bull, and
He lived up to his words. Give me five races,
yeah,
and exactly on the sixth race he won.
boom,
And
easy. You're like,
another big win also. I mean, okay, not win, but another big thing also was for Sebastian Vettel. He managed to take
oh, yeah.
advantage of all the
P2, Seb.
chaos, of all the chaos going on, and finished in P2. And even Gasly managed to score
Gasly.
P3.
Mm-hmm. Yep, getting the P3. Leclerc came close in P4, but again, I think a little bit of fallout in the straight line speed,
Yep,
and yeah, it just didn't work out for them on that day. But still, P4
yep,
after a terrible day, I think they were like just happy to take home the points at that time.
yeah, and especially both the title contenders, both of them didn't score any points. Hamilton rejoined the race,
Mhm.
but unfortunately still was still out of the top 10. So
Yeah,
both him and
he got
Verstappen,
close, but nothing much for him to do.
essentially it was his race to throw away at that point lah. But of course this whole
Mm.
magic thing happened, unexpectedly, and yeah,
Yep,
it was
and
very unexpected.
surprisingly, even Bottas didn't score anything. He was in P12. Yeah, he finished
Ah,
P12, and
right.
he was having a nightmare of a race itself from the get-go. Normally, he's the one that usually outperforms Hamilton in Baku, right? But
Yeah.
this time around, I think it's just probably the car that wasn't really gripping up well, doing well in slow corners or slow speed
Mm-hmm.
tracks on the season, at least in the first half of the season. And Monaco, Baku being two kind of like similar-ish in terms of corner types. They really fell out, and yeah, after that, well, I think France onwards, we started to see some improvement where they had different kind of corners. It's different high-speed corners and whatnot. That's where really, it was really back to reality. Merc versus Red Bull.
Yep. Back to the usual two as well. Just
Mm-hmm.
to quickly go through the qualifying round in the French Grand Prix. So, of course, uh, in terms of the top three, we once again had Verhambot.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly, though,
Mm-hmm.
for Verstappen, I think that pole was not expected. I think even Red Bull going into the French Grand Prix, they were expecting to challenge for P2 or P3. So I think the pole
Yeah.
that they got was not expected, and it was definitely a big win on their end line. The fact that they managed to even qualify P1 with Verstappen, and
Mm-hmm.
also this was for George Russell. He was still continuing his Q2 appearance streak, so this was 7 out of 7 at this point.
Yep.
And this was
Yep.
also the first time, just just as mentioned here, this is the first time we've seen a F1 car twerk with Sunoda locking, I think, both his rears and basically
Yeah. I
uh,
missed that.
back ending into the into
Yeah, into
the
the
into
wall.
the wall, and yeah, the car was just vibrating like crazy.
Yeah, that's I think something we never really noticed. There's just some apparently it's some oscillation coming from the engine or gearbox, right?
Right.
Because the car was going at a full speed and it came to an abrupt halt. So pretty much, if you try to suddenly stop as well, it is something that's going at high speed. You just try to stop it. It's gonna do that kind of action.
Yeah.
The energy has to go somewhere, right?
Yeah,
And
and it just
all
dissipates
the
out like
energy
that.
goes through the rear. And there were also like fear that the gearbox might have been damaged because of that, or maybe even some of the engine components. But
I
luckily, it
think
turned
yeah,
out
it
well.
wasn't. It was still. He
Mm,
didn't receive any penalty for that. Yeah.
yeah, but then it was a surprise for the Red Bulls there because traditionally, France would be a track where the cars like Merc would really do well. Front limited circuit, right?
Okay.
Merc really do well there. But surprisingly, I don't know what were Red Bull on that week. They found something that Merc couldn't, and they were just much faster on the straights in France. Sector 1, Sector 3 was just about equal, but Sector 2, where there's the two long back straights, one back straight actually, if you ignore the chicane, the Mistral chicane,
Mm-hmm.
it's a 2 kilometer long Mistral straight separated by chicane, but that's where the Red Bulls were gaining all their time, 3 4 tenths down the straight alone, and you lose half a tenth, maybe a tenth in the other sectors, but you gain back 3 4 tenths on the straight. That was just the advantage they needed going
Yeah.
into the race as well. This
Yeah.
time they pulled the Spain, they pulled the Merc on Merc.
I think
Uh,
no, because of the
yeah.
fact that Verstappen basically lost it going into turn two, I believe. He made a mistake
Mm-hmm.
and went off track and handed Hamilton the P1. So
Yeah.
Merc had to, yeah, they had to go for a brand new strategy there, and like you said, pull a Merc. I mean, for
Yeah.
Red Bull, they had to
Correct.
pull a Merc and
Red
uh,
Bull did the
go
undercut,
for
I
the
believe,
two.
right? For the first pit stop. Red Bull was the only one
Uh,
that did two pit
yep,
stops.
yep, they did two pit stop and yeah, they did the undercut on Hamilton. So
Yeah,
that is
and
why they
crucial
managed
is
to.
also right. We saw how close Perez was to the grid, and
Mm,
how good he was really like starting to adapt to the car, and the race results. The finishing actually just showed up. He was up there in the podium as well.
yeah,
So 1 and 3 for Mercedes. 1 and 3
Verham,
for
finally a new name there,
mm,
Verhamper.
for Hamper. So
Yeah,
something we'll be expected to see a bit more, but surprises are going to come in very soon in a few
this
races
also
time.
the I think the first time probably we've seen the fissure forming between Bottas and Mercedes, because Bottas was very vocal in terms of the strategy that they chose. He
Yeah,
was not
correct. He
happy.
was
He was
like,
very pissed off, and he
mm,
basically lost out the position to both Verstappen and also to Perez in the end.
yeah, both the Mercs, they were running at like 1-3 at some point,
Yeah,
and they lost their positions, to both the Red Bulls. Perez, Bottas losing into Perez and Hamilton losing into Max. Both thanks to their two stop.
yeah.
I believe Perez was on a one stop though, right? He was on like a super long one stop stint. but his tires were like so much pressure at the end, so he had fresher tires to go for it on Bottas. I believe he
Mm.
might have
Yeah, yeah.
done a two stop. I can't remember, but Max, because they were trying to undercut Lewis at the first stint, right?
Yep. To
They
recover
went
back.
on the hards. They made the undercut work, and then it's just the advantage that Red Bull had on the straights meant that he was able to keep the advantage at that time. Um, they had a bit of a gap somewhere in the middle of the race, and that's why they decided to pull the plug again. And they were like, this time we're gonna do the Merc, but instead, since we are in the lead, we don't want, Hamilton to be doing the same thing that they did to us in Spain, and they decided like, we think by simulations and numbers, blah blah blah. Tire deck was pretty high on the front left. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what, this is the perfect opportunity, just send it. And they did. They boxed, and Max came out 2-3 seconds faster a lap compared to Hamilton. Hamilton did his best, but
Yep.
the
Didn't work out for them
just
in the end.
happened. So by the time it was that lap that Max wanted to overtake, it was an easy pass. Once they get in DRS, new move was done, and off they go, and it just vault off into the horizon, and there we go. P1 for him.
Yep.
Perez, I think if that race went on for maybe another few laps, I dare
He
say
might
he
have. Yeah. He might
might
have
have
had a
challenged
chance.
for P2.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always they say if only there was another lap, if only there was two more laps, it didn't came to true.
Yep. All right. And now moving on to round number 8, which was the Styrian Grand Prix.
Mm-hmm.
So here, just a quick mention with regards to the qualifying round. So Russell again makes it to Q2,
Mm-hmm.
continuing his streak. He almost actually made it to Q3 until Alonso denied him at the last moment, I believe. And I
Yeah.
remember this. I think we were watching as well together, and we were like, "Oh, Russell's gonna make it finally!" And at that last moment, Alonso came in and set in the time. So yeah, Russell got knocked
Yeah.
out in Q2, but starting
And
P11
also,
again.
fun fact, Styrian GP was there as a replacement to the Canadian GP, which was supposed to go on a schedule, but due to COVID restrictions and whatnot happening in Canada at that time,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, nah, man, we're not gonna go with this. No maple syrup for y'all, so let's go back to wherever you want. So they decided like
Austria round 2.
Austria it is.
Yeah.
But instead of Styria being the second round of it, it became the first round of the double header in Austria.
Yep.
So, well, whatever. We had a pretty good fun race there.
Yep.
And first race, I think they had the harder selection of tires over there. Um, I think it was
Ah,
the
okay.
C3, 4, and 5 or something, and then they brought a softer compound for the Austrian GP, which was the following week. So there was a bit of a variation to take place. Um, but looking at the qualifying, like you said, again, Red Bull mighty fast, two
Mm-hmm.
tenths, not much of a gap to say in Austria, but Mercs were really close to each other. Bottas out qualifying Hamilton just by 3,000 three
He did
hundred there.
out-qualify, but he also did
Mm.
have a three-place grid penalty anyway. I think it was
Oh
for a
yeah,
gearbox change.
was it a gearbox change or something?
I
Whatever.
believe
A
it was a
gearbox
gearbox
is
change.
usually five, yeah. So he had to
Oh,
drop down.
okay, maybe it was not gearbox or something else.
Mm-hmm.
So ended up it actually started the race started off with Verham and Norris in P3.
Mm.
So Norris
And
managed
then
to get that.
yeah, race started. Well, I don't
There were a couple of
remember much
incidents
happening. Yeah.
midfield. There was an incident between Leclerc and Gasly, and I think Leclerc had a little bit of damage from that incident, and then Gasly had another incident with Giovinazzi and Latifi. So a lot of like scraps going on, sort of like in the midfield and towards the back end of the
Mhm.
field. Perez and Norris also had a little bit of a battle, but
Oh yeah,
I think
that
Perez
the
sort
one
of
at turn
lost out.
four. Yeah.
Yeah, Perez sort of lost out with a slow pit stop, and so I think that's where he lost the position basically to Bottas. So the
Mm.
race finally ended with Verham bot again, and Perez finished just half a second behind him. So it was
Yeah, but
really Red Bull's problem like that. Basically, the pit stop, they messed up the pit stop, and Perez just lost out on the
yeah, but
podium.
crucially, Max winning it, and winning it by a country mile. 35 seconds was the gap
35, right?
he had at the end to Lewis. and that's something that says something about their car. You know, if it's hooked up well on the weekend,
Mm-hmm.
they were just much faster, and they just pulled off. And traditionally, they have been really good there as well. Um, they were maybe the faster car on the straights, maybe at this point of time,
Mm-hmm.
and overall as well. So they were really struggling to stretch their legs, Red Bull, and Max just pulled out that 35-second gap and won it. So that was like the best case scenario that they could have hoped for.
Yep.
And
And
then next was
next round,
well,
same place,
again same
just
place,
different name.
just different tire, different name, and
Yeah.
a step softer tire compound.
Right.
Nothing really changed, I think.
I think for
Mhm.
no for qualifying specifically, Russell finally made it into Q3. So we
Mm.
saw this in the previous race. I mean the previous week as well. You know he had the pace to make him to get himself into Q3, but he lost out to Alonso there. But this time he did actually make it into Q3 and ends up qualifying P9.
Yeah, and
And
it's one of his very rare Q3 appearances.
yeah,
Mm.
and
But
qualifying
he was
basically
compromised on the tire starts, I guess, because with the step softer tires this time, that meant that the tires would not last as
lasts as
long
long.
as they wanted. So the hardest compound on this weekend was the middle compound for the previous week. So it's just a step softer. So basically, they had to, pretty much like go on a two stop. It was gonna be a two stop anyway. It's just a matter of like when you pit, how long do you stretch and whatnot. And again, because it's 2 in a row, 2 weeks in a row, I think Red Bulls just pretty much had the advantage all over the place. Again, they
Right.
won it. Max won it, and
Yep.
much better performance by the team, I'd say. Although Perez,
Perez
I
had a
think he
couple of
got hit
issues.
incidents. Yes,
He
coming to
yeah
that.
he basically was involved in an incident where he was a victim and then he sort of reversed the role and became the aggressor instead. So
Yeah, so he
yeah,
got pushed wide by Norris at exit of turn four,
yep.
which gave Norris a 5 second and was served in the pits. And then after a while, Perez two times pushed Leclerc off.
Leclerc, yeah.
Once at turn four, I think, and then at turn 5 or 6. So that gave him like two 5 second penalties,
Mm-hmm.
10 second overall. So it didn't really help his case on that day. It was just a bad day for him in the office.
Yeah, I think he got a bit too
Mm,
aggressive at that point. Like he didn't really need to go all out because it seemed like the Red Bull had the pace anyway, and it yeah, I don't know. It just so happened
yeah.
that in those couple of corners, he decided to really push to the max, to the point where Leclerc was literally pushed off the track as well, twice,
Hmm.
So, yeah, I
Yep.
feel like the penalty was definitely deserving there, and especially we saw similar case to what Norris did to him, and Norris got the same penalty. This,
Mm.
I guess, would say the fair judgment by the stewards or by by FIA essentially.
Yeah, it's on the borders, but I think it was quite fair from what
Mm-hmm.
they've done now. Interesting to mention as well, Hamilton didn't really have a good race, due to some
Yeah,
damage that he
yeah,
picked
he
up.
had some damage,
No idea
and
where the damage was. Probably, by mounting one of the curbs, turn one probably, or could have even be any curb, because the curbs are very high and serrated over there, right? That sounding curbs.
yeah,
They sound good from the onboards, but the drivers are like, ugh. If you
yeah,
if you look on their Hamilton, they're just like it just goes like that,
yeah.
it just the whole camera shakes for a
Just
moment.
vibrates for a few seconds.
And that actually has a pretty bad effect on the car handling. To some extent, it can even like off center your steering because of the suspension, how it's set up and all.
Mm-hmm.
But he picked up actually some underfloor damage, which
Yeah,
kind of compromised
compromise
his whole
his
race.
race. Yeah,
That's something you can't repair unless they had a red flag and they can fix it in the pits. Uh, but that didn't happen. So that meant he had to continue, but with compromised pace.
he had to basically also give up the place
Mm,
to Bottas because Bottas was in a much faster car, didn't have the
yeah.
issue that he was facing, and yeah, ended up with Verbot Nor, Verstappen, Bottas, and
So
Norris.
first podium, second podium for Norris actually in the season.
Yes,
Uh,
second podium.
yeah. First one came in Imola, also a third place, and this time around, again it's Red Bull, Mercedes, and
McLaren.
McLaren, but this time it's Valtteri Bottas Mercedes in the P2.
Yep.
So interesting there. Max also picking up the fastest lap, just adding on to his championship lead at that point,
Mm-hmm.
and then yeah, things get a bit heated up
Yes.
in Bahrain
Moving
GP.
into the next round, round number 10, the British GP.
Yeah,
So,
and this was the first race where we had sprint
sprint.
qualifying.
Yep.
Yeah, sprint qualifying, not sprint race. Although we like to call it sprint race, it was officially called the sprint qualifying.
Yep. So
Um,
basically, how the
mm,
format was like for any race that has this sort of sprint qualifying in the 2021 season,
mm-hmm,
qualifying itself was actually held on the Friday, and the
mm-hmm,
result from the qualifying would determine the starting position of the drivers in the sprint qualifying, which is held on the
yep,
Saturday.
yep.
And sprint qualifying, the
Only top three
top
scores
three,
point.
yeah, the top three are
Mm,
awarded points. So it's 3, 2, and 1, right? Like first position gets 3 points, second position 2 points, and third position 1 point.
mm-hmm,
And of course, whatever position you finish in the sprint qualifying, you start the race in that position.
yep.
So this was, yeah. Do you want to take us through the qualifying and the sprint qualifying?
Oof. Yeah, I think qualifying to start off, that was very close between Merck and Red Bull once again, but Hamilton just pipping Max by under 10th. Not much of a gap there,
Mm-hmm.
but he eventually pulled out the lap. Max also pulled out the lap, but it was just fell short just a little, so that meant he started P2. But
And
going
Bottas,
into
yeah, Bottas
the
managed to also,
oh
still get
yeah,
in the top three
fill the
as well.
P3.
And Russell also again managed to make it into Q3 and
Mm-hmm.
qualified P8.
Yep. And Perez this time was nowhere to be seen. He was in P5, out qualified by Leclerc, and pretty much like about half a second, 6 tenths away from his teammate. So Perez was not there on that race, at least for the qualifying. Um, Come the sprint race or sprint qualifying, as
Sprint qualifying.
they
Yep.
they want to call it. Um, Max had the jump on Lewis in the first lap, and that meant he kept the lead throughout the race because they didn't have to pit. There's no mandatory pit stops in
Yeah,
the
I believe it was
sprint
a
qualifying.
17 lap race, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
It was basically
It's
25%.
100 kilometers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was around
So they
25%
they run
race
a
time.
100 kilometer race. So that's gonna be about one third of the original length. So
Mm.
roughly about 17 was it? And tire choice as well was interesting because most of the drivers went for the mediums so that
Mm-hmm.
they could go the distance. But whoa, that was the birth of another meme as well. Giga Alonso, where it wasn't the birth, but it was just a starting
It
of
was
it.
a
Probably,
start, yeah. I think
yeah,
the
it
Giga
was
Alonso
the
part actually came in
yeah,
the next race, when we saw it happen like in a bigger
yeah.
with a bigger outcome there.
Yeah, coming back to this, right? So, yeah, Alonso started on the soft, made up a lot of moves, and
Mm-hmm.
also, we were expecting him to like, fall off at the end. But the thing is, in Silverstone, with these current 21 cars, right, the 30 is just so prominent that the moment you get close within a second or two, you just lose all your downforce, and that means the car in front just gets to dictate the pace. Unless you're like significantly faster, then you're gonna make the move. So Alonso, well, he did well. I think, of course, he's not going to score points. He finished seventh
Yeah.
after starting 11th. Yeah, he qualified 11th. He finished seventh, and that was a good sprint qualifying from him.
Mm-hmm.
I keep want to say sprint race,
Sprint
but
race.
it's so annoying that they're calling it sprint qualifying. So Max took the pole, Hamilton second, Bottas third, 3 to 1 points respectively. And come the race. Oof, lap one.
What a lap.
Again, it
What a
was
lap.
it was very similar to the spring qualifying's first lap, in the sense where Hamilton and Max,
They
they
were
were
neck and
just
neck. They were
going
just
for it.
going, yeah, going into each other,
Mm.
just trying.
Lewis had a much better run from the start,
Yep.
um, which meant that he could pull alongside Max. But into turn three, the first heavy braking zone, right? Max went defensive, and Lewis just had to just take an alternate faster line and then pull alongside him into Brooklyn's. I think the first break at the end of sector one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, all of Brooklyn's, whatever the corner names are. After the Wellington Straight, right? Max also again sent it on the inside to keep the lead, but on the exit onto
He got a, yeah. He basically defended
yeah,
to the
onto
point
the
where
old
he
pit
he
straight.
jeopardized
Yeah,
his exit onto the pit straight. Sorry, not the pit straight,
kind
onto
of.
the old pit
Yeah.
straight. Yeah.
And then that's where we were like, this is kind of like, the exit that they have. It's almost similar to what they had in the spring race, right? Spring
Yeah.
quali, right?
Yeah.
So like, okay, Max goes in the middle. Hamilton will probably just stick it on the outside, and probably he'll keep in P2. But little did we expect, Hamilton went for the smallest possible gap that existed there, tried to send it on the inside, and that caused the incident where it sent Max spinning
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
the wall,
Going
and
into
straight away
cops
a
and
50G collision, and he's out. And immediately Leclerc passes him. Leclerc
yeah,
passes
Leclerc goes
Hamilton
into
as well.
P1, and we were like, oh, okay, that's
Leclerc's in P1.
interesting.
Ooh, yeah.
Leclerc actually got the jump on
So,
Bottas at the start of the
mm,
race, and yeah, managed to hold it in until hold P3 until the whole Verstappen and Hamilton incident happened, and went
mm,
into P1 after that. But yeah,
yeah,
the just the incident itself, like of course this has been debated many times. People have gone through the all the different views, the different cameras and stuff, just to see exactly what happened. Did Hamilton actually have an opportunity in the first place? Did Verstappen close the door on
yeah.
him? There's
It
a lot
was
of like what
just,
ifs.
some people were just like, on the verge of like just saying it's a racing incident, but then again, um, the gap was just not big enough for him to send it on the inside.
Hmm.
If Max left the space, yeah, definitely. But Max would have just gone off wide, and in
Sort of
that
what
case, if
Leclerc ended up doing
yeah,
towards the end
so
of
if
the
that
race.
happened, then probably Max would not be eligible to keep the position. Something
Yeah,
like Bahrain, probably came into his mind. He kept his line, but Hamilton also poked his nose. I'd say it's definitely on a 50-50 there. Racing incident, or could be Hamilton's fault.
I mean in terms of the stewards' decision, they did determine that it was Hamilton's fault, and hence why he was
Yeah,
given the 10-second
10
time
second
penalty.
penalty. Was it a stop go? Because or at least if he no, it was a
Um,
10-second penalty he had to serve in
he had to he served it during the
pit
pit
stop.
stop. Yeah, he served it during his pit
Yeah.
stop.
So that
But
was a very lengthy pit stop, but after that, once again, he just came back through the field. The Merc generally was a car that really did well on harder compound of tires. Um, so I think that's one thing that played to the advantage as well.
But I
Um,
think also just something that I noticed as well, like compared to the previous seasons, we always see that the Merc is a front running car. They don't do well in traffic. But last year that was not the
yeah,
case. Last year they could fight and they could, you know,
I
actually like get
mean,
positions and
if the top two cars are like half a second to 1 second faster than the rest of the field, then it's easy, yeah. But if unless you're Max or Lewis, I don't think you're gonna make that car work well. Um, it's quite easy for him. I think he had the tire advantage, right?
yeah.
And then the tire life advantage, and also being a faster car, and he just had to just push it at some corners, make the overtake stick, and people were like, yeah, we're just gonna not fight it too hard and let the move go. But that was the moment we were like, for one moment, Ferrari P1, is this
Yes, I
happening?
know.
Is this really happening?
I'm
But
just
sadly,
for context, I'm
yeah.
wearing a Red Bull T-shirt, but my main team is actually still Ferrari. I just don't have a Ferrari T-shirt that fits me that fits me right now. so
Yeah.
so yeah, I was super excited when I saw Leclerc was still hanging on to P1, and they were so close. They only had to hold on for two more laps, but it was lap 50 out of 52 when Hamilton got the move on
Yeah.
Leclerc, and you were like, ah,
That was painful. It was like,
Ferrari, why?
no, why? I mean, they did really well, Ferrari. Considering it's a track, we expected them to struggle. After seeing how badly they performed in France, where it's a very
Yeah,
high speed track. It kind of like stresses the fronts as well. But they learned their lessons. I think something clicked in the garage, and they went for it, and they were doing very well. Their race pace was really, really on the probably the best of the rest, even matching Red
Mercedes.
Bull and Mercedes,
Mm-hmm.
apart from Max and Lewis, I think. Um, Probably he was the third fastest driver on the day, very close to being the top two as well. And he
Mm.
made it work. And P2, man, that was fully
Yeah,
deserved for him. And unfortunately, after that, championship took a big swing in Hamilton's favor as well. So
yeah. There was also
25
the
points,
comments that
whereas
were
Max
made
did get
about.
zero.
No, there were also the comments that were made about Hamilton's celebration.
Oh
And to
yeah,
be
that
fair,
was
yeah,
yeah.
it sort of if you didn't know the context, you would have thought he just won the world championship. You know.
he celebrated as if
And
he won it, but it kind of felt like exaggerated, like just a
yeah,
bit
and of course,
artificial lah.
even Max himself also made a comment and said, "Oh, you don't know how what the condition of your rival is at that point, and you're like celebrating like is like you just won the world championship." I do sort of
Yeah,
agree. Like it seemed a little bit too much
it
lah
was
in a sense.
a
Like
bit.
celebrate. Of course, I understand. And of course, if the team told you that, oh yeah, Verstappen's fine, he's like just gone to the hospital just for checkup and stuff. Like okay,
Yeah,
you can relax and you can chill out, but to run around and wave the flag and all that, like it just seemed
yeah.
like a
Oh,
bit too
it's good
much
to see
lah.
the fans again, blah blah blah, and
That
all that,
at
and
this
yeah,
point, that's like the
usual
normal dialogue.
nonsense,
That's a
usual
normal
thing.
dialogue already anyway. I mean, I don't wanna like just bash him for the sake of bashing him. It's just that it's just a little bit over the top, I would say,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
what was needed at that point, at least.
In Malay, we just say lebih-lebih lah.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
So it was just over the top. But yeah, that brought us to the next
The
race
next race and also the final round that
where
we will be going through for
mm-hmm,
today's review, round 11, which is
mm-hmm,
the Hungarian Grand Prix.
interesting race. And
Yeah,
well, Hungary always the last race before the season break, and usually not much happens here apart from one or two great qualifying performances, or maybe a bit of weather to throw in. But this time
yeah.
we had it all. We had the weather, we had the qualifying,
We had qualifying,
we
we
had
had red
a
flags in qualifying.
weird race start, we had
Oh,
weird incidents, and more
we had
controversial incidents to
we
add on
had
to that.
two. I mean, essentially, yeah, we had a very weird race start in terms of the accidents that happened, and also a very weird race start that's never been seen before in the history of Formula One. So,
Yeah,
so just for some context, the what do you call that? The qualifying result
qualifying
that we got in the end was Ham Botber. So
as always. Yeah,
yeah, as always. But yeah, basically going into the race, Hamilton had a good start. Bottas had some issues going off the line, and he was immediately overtaken by Verstappen and Norris. And all of this happened just on the start finish line. It's at the starting straight itself, not even into first corner yet. But of course, like what Dolph mentioned earlier, we had weather playing an impact. So
yep,
it wasn't raining at that point, but it had rained earlier, and the track was damp.
yeah. So
And
they did start
yeah,
on the intermediates. I
yeah,
definitely
correct.
remember
They
that.
started on intermediates. The track was damp, and basically Bottas, well, decided to go bowling that day, and he misjudged his
Yeah,
braking going into turn one, and yeah, he hit Norris, who in turn hit into Verstappen, and then Bottas, just to finish up the job, went and hit Perez as well, just to get
yeah. So
maximum damage.
essentially, he just ended the Red Bull's races there.
Yeah,
Perez, I believe, was out of the race, was he? Oh no, he was still with the
uh,
game, but
Perez did
Perez.
continue, but
Mm,
I think hold on, did he
no,
actually
he
finish?
died. Yeah, he died in the first lap. Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So, and the other two
Both
drivers that
both
were
Verstappen,
in
sorry, both
the
Bottas and Perez were out in that first corner itself. Norris
yeah.
managed to continue.
And
Verstappen
to
also
add
managed to
on
continue.
another incident at the same time, while Bottas was doing his things, Stroll
Yes,
decided to go on his own
I
little
don't
stroll.
know what happened there. I even until now I don't I just can't understand why he even went for that move when there was no space at all there.
Yeah, he
And yeah,
basically ended Leclerc's race and his own race. So Leclerc was out, uh,
Stroll
Stroll
was
was
out,
out,
and I think Leclerc tapped
Bottas was
Ricardo as
out.
well, and Ricardo
Hmm.
spun around, but luckily wasn't too much damage, and he managed to recover
Yeah,
after that as well.
I think there
Oh
were
wait,
five drivers who were involved. So Lance Stroll was out. I'm looking at the
yeah,
exhibition here,
Stroll.
right?
Yeah, I have
Stroll
the
was
picture up
out.
as well.
Leclerc was out. Perez was out. Bottas was out. These four were out in the first lap. Lando as well. I think he finished few laps, but under the safety car, but with damage, he
Oh,
just like
he had to retire.
he had to retire. And
Right,
then
right.
Mazepin as well. I have no idea what happened to him. I think he might have crashed or something. Not even
Maybe.
gonna bother thinking what happened to him, but he was out. So everyone else, 13 runners left on the grid at that time. 14 actually.
Yep. So
Um,
it was one hell of a mess of a race start there, and basically
yeah,
immediately the race had
that
to be
was
red flagged.
the best part. I think that the highlight of the race because of the red flag. Everyone were back in the pits. Okay, repairs were going on. Max was pretty much missing his front
I
barge
think the
pod. The
side
entire area
was it
was
the barge pod or
empty.
the side pod? I think the side pod also was damaged,
The
right?
side pod and barge pod, yeah. So just the right side, when compared to the left side, the right side is just nothing. It's just empty there. They might as well fit
I think
another tire in there.
they had to like I remember seeing like duct tape placed on like some parts of the car and
Yeah,
stuff. Like they had to just like hook it back
they
together.
could salvage some spare parts and thing. Maybe I'm if I'm not mistaken, they might have even taken some parts from Perez's car or from spare parts because they are same spec, right?
Oh, okay.
Under park for me in red flag, they can repair for like to like parts. So whatever the engine cover, whatever they could patch it up, they literally patched it up. With just some duct tapes and whatever tapes they could find, and
Right.
from there on for Max, it was just get the car till the end of the race, just try to score some points. Um, but interestingly, because of
The
that red
the
flag,
restart, I mean. Yeah.
the weather was drying up, right? And they were like, "Nah, should I go on the dry? Should I go on the wet?"
It was
Everyone
during
just
the
decided.
formation lap. Back on the grid. Because
Everyone
they.
decided to come out on the inters again, probably fresh inters, yeah. But that's where the fun begins, right? On the formation lab.
Yeah.
Interesting to note also, the teams can't tell their drivers to box in, so they were probably already briefed by their teams earlier. If you want to box, you have to make your own call and say, okay, I'm coming in.
Right.
And everyone, I mean everyone on the grid, 13 out of 14 drivers that were surviving
Yep.
came into the pits, except for one guy, Lewis Hamilton.
We
He
race
stayed
as
out on
one.
track. We raced as one he was. So he was the only
Yes.
one lining up on the grid at that time.
Taking the actual
Everyone
the
else,
countdown.
everyone else were in the pit lane. And surprisingly, we learned something new as well. If you pit on the formation lap, you should also keep the same track position. You cannot like overtake,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
jump
Because the race
others.
hasn't
So that was a
technically
thing.
the race didn't start yet, so you had to actually
Right.
keep the position, and that's where the issue with Russell came in when he
Yeah.
overtook the cars and had to give the place
So
back
they
again.
all the 13 cars, they boxed, they came out on dry tires, on mediums, I think, at that time. So, it was a drying track, right? It was pretty much good. It's a race start, so it's probably going to be like a medium hard stint anyway, right?
Yep.
So they were out on the mediums. And Hamilton, he was the only one to stay out on the inters. And by the time the five lights went out, after all the cars on the
5 flights
grid
and away
past
we
turn
go
one,
for Lewis Hamilton.
yeah, so he could have the most chill start that he wanted, So indeed he had that, and once he was past turn one, that's where all the cars started to come out,
Mm-hmm.
and then although he had like a 4 or 5 second gap, at five even maybe I think at that time, um, it was funny to see like someone like Gio up front running in the podium or something.
Yeah, yeah,
Huh?
exactly.
What's happening?
It was very
So
weird
Hamilton had to
situations there.
pit at the end of that lap as well to they were like they were catching him on the first lap itself. So he had to box. He was pretty much at the back of the grid,
Yeah,
and then once again drive through the field, made his pit stop, drive through again. But then that brought us to a new winner, potentially new winner of the race, and also some further controversy later on in the race.
yeah.
Esteban Ocon was
Oh,
leading
okay.
the
Sorry, I
race.
actually did
Mm.
note down earlier. You asked regarding Mazepin. So actually, Mazepin was out because of his collision with Raikkonen in the pits. So this was during the
Oh,
restart time when they
yeah,
were going to be
yeah,
lining up in
yeah.
the grid. So on his way out of his pit box, he actually hit. Or actually, Raikkonen hit him. Technically, it
Raikkonen hit,
wasn't.
yeah.
Yeah, Raikkonen hit
Raikkonen was
him.
unsafely released.
Yeah, Raikkonen
Mm-hmm.
hit him and yeah, basically damaged his rear right, if I'm not mistaken. And they couldn't
Front
recover the
right,
car.
yeah. So
So
Mazepin's car was just killed
out.
by Kimi,
Yeah.
and then Kimi, as usual, no chill, just goes on. So it was the team's fault, but I think Kimi did get a time penalty there, and
Mm.
also some fine for the team. Which it's a normal thing for them nowadays.
Yep.
Then yeah, coming
So
back to the
Ocon leading the
Ocon.
race.
Wow, tell me, run it through. What were you thinking at that time, man? Because I was just like, yeah, this is nice.
I was thinking it was nice, but
Mhm.
I don't know. Early on when he was leading already, I sort of think, okay, I don't think it's gonna last. Like, I think like something is gonna happen that's like either the strategy is gonna go wrong or
Mhm.
what do you call that? Some of the other teams, like maybe even the McLaren or Ferrari
Mhm.
could be. I mean, yeah, we only had Sainz and Ricardo left, so maybe they would be start picking up the pace, in order to come and attack him by the end of the race as well. But that entire battle, this was where Giga Alonso was born, and to be honest, that was
Yeah,
honestly one of the best. That was one of the highlights of the entire season. The defense that Alonso put on for I think what 3 4 laps
3 4 now, man. I think it was
more.
definitely more than that. It's just probably
I mean, yeah,
that's
Hamilton was catching up to him for quite a number of laps already. But the battle that they had, like back and forth, like Alonso, he played the smart
four
game.
5 laps. I think yeah, definitely the best defense that we've ever seen.
Yeah,
Because it's
and
really difficult to overtake over here, right? Like it's only one straight where you can really make the move, and
it sort of gave me like that nostalgic memory of seeing, like the 2000s races, like that's where you always see cars going back and forth. Like they always swap positions when they're overtaking. Like,
mm-hmm.
okay, you let go here, you brake a little bit early here, you let the guy overtake, but you take the exit of the corner more. You gain more speed towards the exit of the corner and you
Yeah,
overtake back, like a lot of swapping positions and all that. Like Perez does that a lot, and Alonso also did that a lot. And of
yeah.
course, these two guys, their driving style is exactly the driving style that can halt Hamilton, can
Mm.
actually slow down Hamilton.
Hold them off.
Yeah,
And
because like
crucially,
if
also the track also played into the advantage because
yeah,
it's after turn 3 4. The rest of the track is just twisty bits. You can't really follow in these cars that easily. But come the main straight, it's just too far off. Even with DRS, you really need like a significant speed advantage or to be very close to the car in front, and then you can launch an attack. And I think those few laps where uh, Alonso held up Hamilton a lot, probably maybe worth 5 10 seconds of Hamilton's overall pace. 10 seconds easily. Otherwise, if it was a clear road, Hamilton would have caught up to back of Seb and also
yeah,
Ocon and eventually made the move. So that proved to be like one of the crucial defending done by Alonso there, which he gets paid back. He gets the good karma back at the end of the season
yeah,
in the second half, and we'll come to that next week. So that defending helped Ocon get his first win, and Seb at that time his second podium of the season, but something happened.
yes. We had a fuel, I think fuel measurement issue that
Mm,
happened that pretty much happened post race,
yeah,
and unfortunately,
that
Seb
got
was
him
disqualified.
disqualified.
Yeah, completely
Yeah,
disqualified. And yeah, that basically awarded Hamilton P2, and Sainz managed to
gets
get
the
P3.
P3 out of that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
at least the good thing that came out from that, I guess, Ferrari gets a top three position 2 races in a row.
Once
Leclerc,
again,
yeah, Leclerc
yeah.
in the British GP and Sainz over here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that
Yeah,
was
that Seb's
sad,
disqualification was
sad.
probably the like most painful thing because they argued that it was a fuel sensor fault, right?
Right.
And that's a standard part issued by the FIA, so every team has to use the same part. Apparently that was broken, which caused the car to yeah it was broken, and that caused the car to be the reading to come out false, and the car was eating more fuel than it should. Hungary's like probably, although we don't think about it, it's a heavy fuel consumption track, but it is quite heavy also. So or maybe the teams are just like running very low on fuel because expecting some rain and whatnot, right?
Right.
So every team, I think they were marginal on fuel. Even the Williams at the end, they had to stop after the race when they stopped on track. The reason is they have to make
Yeah,
sure that the
actually, I
car
think I
has
think it was
always
Williams and also Alpha, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was
mm,
Giovinazzi also had to stop.
yeah, because they have to make sure that the car at least has 1 liter of fuel remaining in the tank
Mm-hmm.
that will be used as
The sampling, right?
for the sampling. Yeah, so they'll take that fuel sample, they will put in 3 batches, and they do like 3 different tests or something to make sure that the fuel is not contaminated or whatnot.
Go back to school
Unfortunately,
chemistry for that.
fortunately, SEP's fuel level was under 1 liter at that time.
Mm.
They did not notice that on their reading was normal, but whether or not that's true, but they keep blaming the sensor. But again, it came down as a technical infringement rather than you know a driving infringement, right?
Right.
So which earned him a disqualification. Uh, Unfortunate for him, but I don't think he'd be too bummed about that after that. He was, but
He was definitely,
he
yeah.
was definitely, but it was a season break, so it was like 3 weeks to shrug it off. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And with that, we are basically at the end of our first review, our first wrap
Mm-hmm.
up of the 2021 season review. So, thank you so much, guys, for sticking with us for the past one. It's been it's almost 2 hours now. I actually expected this to like take at least 1 hour to 1 hour 1.5 hours max. But yeah,
Mhm.
as usual, we have a lot of have a lot to talk about, and F1 being the thing that both of us are really
Yeah.
our love, like essentially,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know our favorite sport anyway. So yeah, it's always something that we want to talk about more. But yeah, thanks so much, Dal, for
Thank you too for inviting me to
joining me.
this thing. Be looking forward to it every week.
No problem. Yep. So yes, we'll be continuing with the second half of the 2021 season review next week, Tuesday. Time might be around the same time as what we had today, but yeah, uh, you can come over to my Discord channel to get the latest updates for that. But yeah, just stick around for next Tuesday as well. So the plan is we will be completing the 2021 review next week. The week after that, we will be taking a look at the 2022 changes.
Preseason.
The
Mm-hmm.
preseason testing, the new drivers, the team changes that are
Regulations.
happening. Yeah, changes that are
Yeah.
happening in terms of the regulations and so on. So that would be a great
And that will be
chance
just
to
right after the
the second
Bahrain
test.
preseason test is over.
Yes.
So
So we
which
get
is
quite a
like
bit in good
perfect time,
indication.
we get a good indication of like where the pecking order really is, who is
Yeah.
really looking like they are on the money, who looks like they've lost out on these regulations.
Yeah.
We do have an idea from the first test, but always first test may not be the most representative because it's a new aero regulation. Every team might be hiding something, might just be coming with something new for maybe even like a B spec car for for Bahrain
Yeah.
test, which might be the real car that will run the week after. So
Yeah.
yeah, looking forward to that as well.
And then of course that week as well we will be having the first Grand Prix for this year in Bahrain. And
Mm.
yeah, we'll be continuing with our podcast during the week after that as well. So yeah, stay tuned. We definitely have at least for the foreseeable future 3 podcasts coming up,
Yeah,
and we hope you guys enjoyed this. This podcast will also be uploaded to my YouTube channel. You can also be linking that in my Discord as well, so you can check that out. Yes,
wherever it is.
thanks for pointing it out. But
Yes.
yeah, thanks again, everyone. Have a great
Yeah.
week ahead, and
Ciao,
we will see you
boys.
soon. Bye bye.
Bye bye.